Good morning, Nigeria, and a beautiful weekend to you. Now, let's take a look at the top stories dominating our newspaper today. First, we'll start with the New Telegraph. On the New Telegraph newspaper, the lead page is actually coming from a lawyer. He says that how Nigeria's poor institutional control allows corruption to thrive. You get the full story on page 4 of the newspaper. Then at the top of the newspaper on page 5, Atiku Abubakar to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, he says that the president should stop chasing shadows that they left behind robust pension scheme. At the bottom of the newspaper on page 2, 60 years after July 29th coup, Aguiyi Fajuyi review state of nation point way forward. Still in the same newspaper on page 29, coming from the Enugu Christian Association of Nigeria, they say that Muslim ticket is unacceptable come 2027. Recall that the president Bola Ahmed Tinubu has maintained his vice president Shetima as his running mate come 2027, and then the Enugu State Christian Association are saying that they are not accepting the Muslim ticket. We move away from that newspaper to Vanguard newspaper. On the Vanguard newspaper, coming from government office budget, they say that fake agency originated from Buhari government. Recall that the IPC are still under investigation. Now, the budget office are saying that this fake agency actually originated from the late President Muhammadu Buhari's administration. You get the full story on page 5 of the newspaper. Then at the top of the same newspaper on page 15. This is coming from the NDC presidential candidate Peter Obi. He said that you and I can change Nigeria in 4 years. And he also went further to say that he's committed to one term and can sign legally binding affidavit that regarding his one-term government ambitions. He's saying that he's committed to it and he can go ahead to swear affidavit in regarding to that, because a lot of Nigerians are saying that it is not possible that he will not serve one term, but he's assuring Nigerians that he's committed to that promise that he made. Still in the same newspaper on page 4 of the newspaper as well, this is coming from the Kwara state government. They say that they have built 1,600 housing units for residents in Kwara State. At the bottom of the same newspaper, this is coming from the Enugu State government. Recall that the Enugu air crash in Benin airport yesterday. Now, the Enugu State government, Governor Mba, is saying he has reacted to the runway incident. He says safety is non-negotiable. Recall there was no life lost in the incident. Now the governor has actually reacted to the incident. Then on page 10 of the newspaper, coming from General Musa, he said that he has stated why the military is facing tough challenge in the north in regards to the terrorism fight against bandits and ISWAP and ISIS. He's saying that the military are facing a lot of tough challenges at the north. We move away from that newspaper to the Punch newspaper. On the Punch newspaper, on page 4 and page 19, it says rich countries harvest 20,000 Nigerian health professionals. Then at the top of the newspaper, on Cross River State, a mother in Cross River State has recounted how she lost 4 brilliant children to landslide in one night. This is so sad. Recall the house that actually collapsed in Cross River State. The woman has come out to say how she lost 4 brilliant children in Cross River State, Calabar. Condolence to the woman. This is a very sad story here. You know, watching your children grow to the age of losing them is a really sad one. Still in the same newspaper, at the bottom of the newspaper as well, this is coming from a Canadian woman, a woman who is based in Canada. She said that her husband still slept with side chick after fidelity oath. You get the full story on page 28 of the newspaper. We'll move away from that newspaper to the Daily Trust newspaper. On the Daily Trust newspaper, the physiotherapist that died in Ebonyi State, Mary Habila, what went wrong. You get the full story on page 4 of the newspaper to actually find out what went wrong in that actually caused the death of this young lady. At the top of the newspaper in the middle, on page 8, INEC records over 6 million new voters against 2027 election. That is a good one. If you haven't gotten your PVC, please do well to get one. Then on page 25 of the newspaper, inside story of Plateau's female vigilantes. At the bottom of the newspaper on page 18, last moments of brothers swept away by flood. This is so sad. 2 brothers are being swept away by flood. The rain this year has been in a different level. Condolence to the bereaved family. This is so sad. We move away from that particular newspaper to the Daily Sun. On the Daily Sun newspaper, on page 26, Atiku tackles Obasanjo. The full story is on page 26 of the newspaper. Atiku tackles Obasanjo ahead of the 2027 election. Then at the top of the newspaper on page 29, court dismisses Mark Arekpesola's objection to Gombe's suit. Still in the same newspaper, coming from the federal government, they said only 80 million Nigerians have access to electricity. The full story is on page 25 of the newspaper. Then on page 25 of the newspaper as well, OT expresses worry over flooding, rising rent in Abia State. The governor of Abia State has expressed he's worried over flooding and the rising cost of rent in Abia State. It's not just in Abia State alone. So many other states are also experiencing flood, especially in Cross River State and in Lagos as well. They are also experiencing flood. At the bottom of the newspaper, this is on entertainment. Eniola Ajo, she said how I moved from clerk to Nollywood star. You get the full story on page 15 of the newspaper. We move away from that newspaper to the Guardian newspaper. On the Guardian newspaper, court battles, the factions that may shape 2027 poll. You get the full story on page 8 and 9 of the newspaper. Then at the top of the newspaper, HCSF appointments, civil service elders rally behind Adeguroye. The full story is on page 4 of the newspaper. Granting Lagos spatial status in an economic necessity. You get the full story on page 10 and 11 of the newspaper. Then by the right side of the newspaper, this is coming from the INEC chairman. He said global attention fixed on Nigeria's 2027 elections. The INEC chairman says that global attention is now fixed on the 2027 elections. They don't want what happened in 2023 to repeat itself in 2027. You get the full story on page 36 of the newspaper. Then on page 3 of the newspaper, in Lagos State, Sanwo-Olu launches building insurance scheme to tackle collapse, protect property owners. Recall that Lagos has been experiencing series of building collapses. Now, the governor of Lagos State has launched a building insurance scheme in order to protect properties owned by private individuals. We move away from that newspaper to the Daily Independent. On the Daily Independent, according to analyst reports, what government must do before transiting 12-year compulsory basic education model. You get the full story on page 8 of the newspaper. This is coming from analyst report. Then at the top of the newspaper, PFN urges Tinubu to reject road safety bill, seeks wider consultation. You get the full story on page 27 of the newspaper. Then on page 10 of the newspaper, probe cause of Enugu air runway excursion at Benin Airport. Obi urges NCAA NSIP. That is coming from the NDC presidential candidate Peter Obi. He's urging the NCAA and the NSIB to carry out investigation to what exactly caused the Enugu air runway excursion at the Benin airport. Then at the bottom of the newspaper on page 27, ensure judiciary is insulated from external influence, Bode Judge urges NJC. Then on page 30 of the newspaper, beyond the bill, can Nigeria states build police forces that work? This is a question that can Nigerian states build police forces that works? Recall that recently the House of Representatives has passed the state police bill. Now the question is coming that can Nigeria states build police forces that work? That's the question for our leaders to actually answer. The full story is on page 30 of the newspaper. Then at the bottom of the newspaper on page 10, this is coming from the Accord Party presidential candidate. He said workers aren't just voters but equal partners in governance. Workers are not just workers, but they are also equal partners when it comes to voting during election. We move away from that particular newspaper to our last newspaper for today, which is the Matrix newspaper. On the Matrix newspaper, the lead page says, Budget Office Director General, no funds were released to PFIPC. The Budget Office Director General says that there was no funds that were released to the Presidential Foreign Intervention Promotion Council, that there was no fund released to that particular organization. Then at the top of the newspaper, shoot on sight, IGP orders nationwide crackdown on illegal firearms. This is coming from the Inspector General of Police, Tunji Disu. He has given the order that officers should shoot on sight in order to crack down illegal firearms. Then in the middle of the newspaper, the Finance Minister launches VAT Reform Committee. At the bottom of the newspaper, coming from the Oyo State government, life imprisonment inadequate for Oriwe kidnap victims. That's coming from the Oyo State government. Recall that the three suspects who actually carried out this, who were involved in this kidnapping, has been caught. And then the government is saying that life imprisonment is not enough for them. It is inadequate for the people who were behind this kidnap. Then US imposes 12.5% tariff on Nigerian exports over labor concerns. US has imposed 12.5% tariff on Nigerian exports over labor concern. At the bottom of the newspaper, Atiku fires back at Tinubu over pension backlog claims. Then in the middle of the newspaper, this is going to be our last headline for today. Recall that Blessing CEO and fake alleged news has been circulating online regarding her suspected cancer stage 12. Now, court has granted the said Blessing CEO 12 million naira bail in alleged 69 million naira fraud case. She posted her account on social media, which has been a lot of goodwill Nigerians has been generating funds for her to actually treat her said cancer stage 12. Now the court has granted her 20 million naira bail over this alleged 69 million naira fraud case. We've come to the end of the newspaper review. Many thanks for watching, and do stay tuned as we bring you more updates.